I can't make that trip, but I don't like fears, just take my ears, I can handle it. I can call on a friend, remember the face, where it's you. Making me sad, the good thoughts inside me, friendly food. Thoughts for years I had so long ago, I will look at the book. Having a plan to that I think like is something new. I'm sure that song is all across the town and across the street. But let me tell you, friends, that I'll be waiting and turn your feet. There was nothing joy, but a man named voice hold you down. Well, I hope now you know that the stairs in the place that you thought you found. And one that you know I was thinking about, just like you thought I hope you one day to reach your promise, to stand the fire, wasn't that the every Monday. I heard the doorbell ringing, I see by invisible, gentle sound of a lady singing. I feel the face fall into the light, carpet of light, they wrap around me. I have to pretend to bide my time, here on this I move more slowly. Shake your head, see your lips like I make that trip. And all my shoes just fit my ears like a handle. I can call on a friend, remember the day before it's true. Making me sad, and follow the crowd, family true. Anything I go through it all. Back control. Trading has nothing more. Μετά την πολύ μεγάλη πρόκληση.
Λοιπόν, πήραμε ήδη μια γεύση από τον Burgess, από αυτά που θα δούμε αύριο στη σκηνή στην Αθήνα με τους Chameleons, στο Κύτταρο. Είχαμε το 2ωρο αφιέρωμα στον John Peel περίπου ένα μήνα πίσω. Μας είχε μιλήσει ο Μάρκ για τον Peel. Οι Chameleons από τα πολύ αγαπημένα σχήματα του μεγάλου John Peel. Mark, can you tell us some of your memories, maybe, about John Peel?
About John Peel?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really ordinary, down-to-earth fella. Met him outside the BBC when I was with Dave to give him a tape. Because he'd written to us. We sent him a tape that was really bad, and he wrote to us and said, well, actually, I really like it. and waited outside the BBC. And when we saw him, we just went up to him and we just gave him and showed him the letter. And he said, "Oh, give me 30 minutes, give me an hour with it, and I'll meet you later and I'll tell you what I think." Which he did. We had a cup of coffee and went back and he came out. And he said he really liked it. He said he loved it, and he didn't believe it was us. He was saying, "Is this really you?" Because he thought we were trying to wind him up, you know, claim a band he'd not heard of. Some people go, "Ha ha, I fooled you." But no, he said no, it was just another name on the cassette box because we didn't have a cassette box. And then he said, "What's your band called?" And we just looked at each other because we didn't have a name. And we just went, "We've not got a name yet." And he thought that was really funny. So then he said, "Well," I said, "Loved it," and I'll play it for the producer. And then 2 days later, about 9 o'clock in the morning, the phone rings, and I go downstairs and I pick the phone up, and John Peel was on the phone saying, "Hello, it's John Peel here." And I thought somebody was winding me up. I thought it was a joke at first. I thought it was Tony. So I'm going, "That's very good, Tony. You sound just like him." He says, "No, this is really John Peel here." I said, "So wait a minute, Tony's in France, can't be Tony." So then he just said, "We want you to come for a session." But it's not actually there, John, when you do it. He books you for the session, and then he goes to the BBC, and you don't see him. But he was really excited about it because the night before the broadcast, he was talking about it on the radio, saying, "Oh, I've got a band tomorrow night, don't miss it," and all this. And we just wanted to be on his program because we liked John Peel. That was the only reason we did it. We weren't trying to, get famous or anything. We just wanted to be on that program because we listened to it every night. We used to go to a friend's house and smoke real big joints about a foot long, this big. Well, you can't see it any, but long ones. And we used to sit there and smoke and get stoned and listen to John Peel every night. So now we were on the show, we were really excited. We all went there and we were all listening and waiting for our songs to come on. And he said something after every song. He just said something like "superb" or something. We were just really happy. And but then our lives changed after that overnight, like literally the day after that first broadcast. Virgin phoned us up and said, "We want to come to London, and we want to do this, and we want to do that, and we want to, So our lives, like literally, just overnight, completely changed our lives because our lives were never the same after that. And then I met him a couple of times after that, and he was great, I mean, he had a big cardboard box in the corner of his office, about this high, full of cassette tapes, full. And he said to me, he said, "Look, see that box there?" And I looked, and he says, "I've got to get through every one of those tapes." So he actually sat down with a box this high, full of cassette tapes, box about as up to my chest. I'm 5'11", so it came up to my chest, this box, and it was full of cassette tapes. And he'd sit there and systematically just pick one out whenever he had some spare time. He'd sit in his office and he'd just pull the tapes out and put them in a machine and listen to the first tune or whatever. And if he liked it, he'd had a piece of stationery. It had Radio 1 logo on it, and he'd write to them. He was great. He was really, really great. And he wasn't pretentious about him. He wasn't show business or anything like that. In fact, from what I could gather, he didn't really like mixing with musicians very much. He didn't
like Mark Smith from The Fall.
Yeah, I mean, Mark must have done God, how many sessions has Mark done for him? He must have done 10 sessions for him at least. And I think Mark only ever met him once, I think. Same with the Undertones. The Undertones were one of his favourite bands, and they were saying they only met him twice.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, but he wasn't a kind of, he didn't hang out with. He didn't hang out with the musicians and stuff. He wasn't really into it at all.
Keep a distance. It's good.
Yeah, he just had his show and he liked his records and
music.
Just music, yeah. And he didn't want to get involved in all the bullshit. And if you get that into the music business, it's nothing but bullshit. So, he did the right thing. But he'd turn up at festivals to see people. I mean, John bumped into him at, I think it's Glastonbury one year and stuff. So he would do it. He'd go out and he used to go out and see gigs. I mean, when we played at the Town and Country in '86, he was there with Janice Long, but he had the show that night, so he had to leave to do his show. So he did go out and watch groups and stuff like that, but he didn't. He wasn't. He didn't get friendly with. So I don't think he'd done that since the '60s.
Okay, Mark. So, πάμε τώρα να πάρουμε μια γεύση από ένα live των Chameleons που σηματοδοτεί και ένα comeback για την μπάντα.